in a place veiled by mist and memory, deep within the pulse of the American continent, lies a world lost to time. Beneath the roots of ancient ceiba trees, under layers of soil, ash, and stone, sleeps the story of a civilization that challenged the stars and listened to the breath of the gods. What lies hidden within these jungles is not just stone and ruin. It is the echo of minds that mapped the heavens, sculpted eternity, and dared to believe that life itself was a sacred journey through trial and transformation. This is not merely a tale of temples and kings. It is the story of a people who believed the universe was alive, breathing, shifting, watching. For the Maya, the world was not divided into reality and myth. The divine and the earthly were woven into a single thread. Every day was a battle, every dream a prophecy, every soul a player in the cosmic game of life and death. And at the heart of this story is a test, a series of trials so sacred, so treacherous, that only the most chosen, those blessed by the gods or cursed to greatness, could attempt them. These were not tests of muscle alone, but of mind, spirit, and the very essence of what it meant to be human in a world watched over by gods with jaguar eyes and serpent tongues. These were the tests of the Mayan gods. They were not for the faint of heart. They were designed by the divine, executed by death, and survived only by those who understood not only the world, but themselves. This is the story of those tests, and of those who dared to face them. Let us descend. Let us remember. Let us begin. Before the first maize sprouted from the sacred ground, before the sun was tamed and the moon was born, before blood was given in offering and names were carved into stone, the Maya believed there was order, not chaos, not randomness, but order, divine, cyclical, and sacred. The Maya world was not flat. It was not empty. It was layered, a cosmic tree stretching between three realms: the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. Above, the sky arched across 13 levels, each one a seat of divine energy, each guarded by gods who shaped time and light. Below, the underworld sank into 9 cold, dark layers: Xibalba, the place of fear, decay, and judgment. And in between, balanced on the back of a great reptilian beast, was the world of the living. Our world. To the Maya, life was a thread stretched between these layers, and the gods, the spirits, the ancestors, they walked that thread with us. The universe itself was a great cycle. Days were counted not in isolation, but as part of a larger rhythm. The movement of Venus, the eclipse of the sun, the breath of the moon. Time was not linear. It was sacred, predictable, alive. They measured time with astonishing complexity, with the Tzolk'in, the 260-day sacred calendar, and the Hab, the 365-day solar calendar. Combined, they created the calendar round, a cycle that governed the rituals, the births, the deaths, the very will of the gods. But even beyond that, the Maya believed in the long count, a measurement of time that spanned thousands upon thousands of years, counting the births and destructions of entire worlds. We, the modern world, once feared 2012, misunderstanding it as a doomsday prophecy. But for the Maya, it was not an end. It was a turning, a reset, a breath before the next cycle. Within this sacred order, every individual had a nawal, a spiritual companion, a force tied to the day of their birth, revealing one's nature and destiny. Priests and shamans could read these signs, interpreting the will of the gods through the placement of stars, the cries of birds, the shape of clouds. Nothing was mundane. Everything had meaning. And at the heart of this entire cosmology was the idea of balance. The gods gave life, and they demanded something in return. Corn from the earth, yes. Yes, offerings, yes, but also suffering, struggle, understanding, because the gods were not distant. They were watching, testing. They had once sacrificed themselves to create the sun, the moon, and mankind. And now mankind, in turn, was expected to honor that divine act by surviving, by proving worthy, by walking through the fires of their tests and emerging transformed. Among the pantheon of Maya deities, few were as feared as the lords of Xibalba, masters of the underworld, tricksters, judges, and tormentors. They were not evil in the modern sense, they were necessary, because death was not the end. It was the gate, and the path to the divine always ran through darkness. The Maya didn't believe in an easy life. They believed in a meaningful one. Their gods weren't just creators, they were challengers. They placed trials in stories, in dreams, in life itself. They whispered to priests. They watched the stars. And when the time came, they tested. To be chosen was both a blessing and a burden. Chosen by the gods to prove one's worth, not for riches, not for fame, but for something more eternal. Cosmic balance. The Maya believed that the gods had created mankind not once, but 4 times. And each time, mankind had failed. First made of mud, weak and shapeless. Then of wood, soulless and cold. Then of flesh, arrogant and deaf to the gods. And finally, mankind was born from maize, the sacred crop, the food of life. But even maize-born humans were imperfect, and so the gods continued to test. Some tests came in ritual, some in dreams, some in myth, and some, the most feared, the most sacred, came in the stories of the hero twins. 2 brothers born of prophecy, descendants of a fallen father, destined to face the lords of Xibalba and pass through their deadly trials. They did not go to the underworld for glory. They went because the gods demanded it. They went because every Maya man, woman, and child, whether farmer or priest, king or slave, would, in their own way, one day face the trials of the gods. These stories were not fantasy. They were mirrors, and every mirror reflects something real. It was no mere grave. It was a world, a labyrinth of shadows, blood, and illusion that stretched deep beneath the surface of existence. To the Maya, Xibalba was more real than the stone underfoot. It was a place no one entered willingly, and none emerged unchanged. This was the realm of the lords of death, gods as clever as they were cruel, as cosmic as they were intimate. They did not thirst for blood mindlessly. They did not punish without reason. They tested, they judged, they taught. Xibalba was a divine theater, and those who entered its gates stepped into a drama older than the stars. According to the sacred Popol Vuh, the great mythic text of the Quiché Maya, Xibalba was ruled by a pantheon of terrible, magnificent beings. Chief among them were Hun Kame, 1 death, and Vukub Kame, 7 death. They were not alone. 10 more gods made up their court, a council of tormentors who wielded sickness, rot, bloodletting, and humiliation like divine instruments. Each one had a role. Each one controlled a different form of death. Their names spoke of their purpose: Chamiabak, bone staff; Ahalmez, sudden death; Ahaltakab, stabbed death; Siquiripat, flying scab; Kuchumakwik, gathered blood. These were not metaphorical evils. They were the divine principles of suffering, personified and enshrined. But Xibalba itself was more than a court. It was a maze. The path through it wound through tests designed not just to kill, but to confuse, humiliate, and break the spirit. It began at the crossroads, where 4 roads spoke: red, black, white, and yellow. To choose the wrong one was to begin your trial with shame. Then came the house of darkness, where no light existed. Then the house of gloom, where blades danced in the shadows. Then the house of cold, where the soul froze in silence. Then the house of jaguars, where beasts with eyes like fire tore at flesh. Then the house of fire, where breath itself burned. And the house of bats, where Kamazots, the bat god, awaited with a blade hidden in his wings. These houses were more than traps. They were lessons. Each chamber in Xibalba reflected the challenges of life: fear, pain, pride, deceit, and endurance. Those who passed through these places and survived did not simply avoid death, they transcended it. They became more. The Maya saw Xibalba not only as a realm for the dead, but as a necessary trial for the soul. Just as maize cannot grow without first being buried, so too the spirit must pass through darkness before it can be reborn into light. But the path was not just physical. Xibalba tested the mind, the heart, the wit. It was not enough to be strong. One had to be clever. One had to be humble. One had to see through the illusions laid by the gods. Because that is what the lords of death loved most. Deception. They disguised themselves. They played with form. They seated dummies on thrones and watched as mortals bowed to them, failing the first test of discernment. They invited their victims to sit on a burning bench, knowing that the ignorant would obey without question. They rigged the trials, not to be fair, but to be revealing. For the Maya, these stories weren't only myth, they were moral guidance. They taught that to face adversity, one must see clearly, think carefully, act with honor, and trust in something deeper than fear. Xibalba was cruel, but it was also sacred. It was the forge where the spirit was melted and reshaped, the gate through which heroes were born. And the greatest heroes of all, the ones whose tale still echoes across stone walls and jungle winds, were the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, sons of the sacrificed, born to avenge, chosen to descend. They did not walk into Xibalba with swords or shields. They walked in with stories, with games, with cunning, with the power of truth. Because the tests of the Mayan gods were not designed to destroy. They were designed to reveal. And that revelation, whether in life or death, was the true path to transformation. Before there was triumph, there was silence. Before the twins rose in legend, there was blood in the earth, and a head hung from a tree. This is how it began. In the age before men were made from maize, in a time when gods still walked among the shadows, two brothers, Hunahpu and Vukub Hunahpu, played a sacred game, Poktapak, the ball game of the gods. Not just sport, but ceremony. They played in the court above the earth, but their joy echoed into the underworld. The lords of Xibalba heard the noise. They were not amused. Hun Kame and Vukub Kame summoned the brothers to Xibalba, cloaked their demands in trickery, and cast the gods of sport into their trials. They failed. In the house of darkness, they stumbled. In the house of jaguars, they were devoured. And when they faced the final judgment, the lords of death sacrificed them. But Hunahpu's head, it did not die. They hung it in a tree, a calabash tree, and there the seed of new life waited. One day, a young goddess named Ixkik wandered near. The tree whispered. The head spoke. It spat into her hand. And in that moment, a divine conception began. From that union, without touch or sin, were born the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, children of light and vengeance, of the fallen and the foretold. They were not raised as gods. They were mocked by their half-brothers, rejected, treated as tricksters. But the twins were different. They spoke to animals. They could reshape the world. They built, destroyed. Imagine, they brought light from under stone. And in time, they discovered their father's story, his defeat, his humiliation. They did not cry. They did not rage. They planned. The lords of Xibalba had taken what was sacred. Now it was time to return. So began the descent. The hero twins stepped into the crossroads, where roads whispered lies. But unlike their father, they chose with wisdom. They did not bow to the dummy gods. They refused the burning bench. They walked the trials with their eyes open. Each house of terror awaited. In the house of darkness, they summoned fireflies to shine. In the house of cold, they survived the frost with hidden embers. In the house of jaguars, they fed the beast's bones instead of flesh. In the house of bats, they hid inside their blowguns, until one moment of distraction cost Hunahpu his head. The lords of death laughed. They believed they had won. But Xbalanque tricked them again. He summoned creatures of the forest. He crafted a new head from a gourd, and when it was time, the true head returned, restored by wit, not war. The twins pressed forward. They challenged the gods to a ball game, just as their father once had. But this time, the gods did not control the outcome. The twins played not with desperation, but with strategy. They lured the lords into traps. They changed the rules. They outwitted death at its own game. Then came the final test, one they gave themselves. The twins allowed themselves to die, voluntarily. They leapt into a fire, were reduced to ash, and scattered across the river. The gods believed it was over. But days later, the twins returned, not as boys, but as gods. They came disguised as dancers, magicians. They performed miracles. They brought joy to Xibalba, joy the lords had never known. Then they offered the greatest performance. They killed each other, and then brought one another back. The lords, greedy for immortality, begged, "Do it to us." And so the twins obliged. They killed the lords, but never brought them back. Xibalba, the place of fear, had been silenced. But the twins, they did not stay. They did not rule. They rose up through the layers of the world into the sky. One became the sun, the other the moon, eternal watchers, guides of the night and day, bringers of balance. Their journey was not just revenge, it was transformation. They had proven that suffering was not the end, that death was not defeat, that cleverness, resilience, and sacrifice could outmatch even the gods of death. To the Maya, their story is not fantasy. It is instruction. It is cosmology. It is hope. Because in every trial, in every moment of darkness, the soul walks the path of the hero twins, and the gods are always watching. The hero twins were not just characters in a distant myth. For the ancient Maya, their story pulsed through every stone, every temple, every beat of the drum in the night. They believed the trials of the gods were not locked in the past. They were eternal cycles, cosmic dramas that played out not just in the sky, but on earth. And they, the Maya, were not just spectators. They were participants. To walk in the footsteps of the gods was not fantasy. It was duty. Across cities like Copan, Tikal, Palenque, and Oxmal, rituals were held that reenacted the passage through Xibalba. The most sacred of these was the ball game, Pok-ta-Pok, or pits in some Maya languages. This was no mere competition. It was a recreation of the eternal battle between life and death, light and shadow, the hero twins and the lords of Xibalba. Two teams entered a long, narrow court, stone walls rising on each side, sometimes lined with glyphs and images of decapitation, sacrifice, and rebirth. The goal? Pass a heavy rubber ball through a stone ring without using your hands. It demanded strength, agility, and spiritual purpose. The players became avatars, living embodiments of myth. To strike the ball was to strike the head of a god. To score was to invoke the rebirth of the sun. Some games ended in celebration, others in sacrifice. And here's the truth. Not all who died were victims. Some were volunteers, honored, even envied. To be chosen for sacrifice was to become divine. To shed one's blood was to nourish the universe. In Maya cosmology, blood was sacred. It was the food of the gods. And the most potent blood, the one that could pierce the veil between worlds, was the blood of kings, queens, and priests. In royal courts, rituals were performed where noble men and women offered their own blood, from tongues, ears, genitals, using stingray spines or obsidian blades. The pain was not punishment. It was communication. It was a portal. As their blood flowed, they entered trance. Visions filled their minds. Smoke turned to serpents. Serpents became ancestors. Ancestors whispered the secrets of the gods. The ceremonies were often held at night, lit by firelight, with drums and flutes guiding the soul into other realms. The goal was not just communion, it was transformation. Like the hero twins who died and rose again, the ritual participant left their body behind and returned changed. Temples themselves were built to echo this journey. The steps of pyramids like those at Chichén Itzá or Tikal weren't just practical. They were symbolic. Each level was a layer of the cosmos, from the earthly plane down into the underworld, and up toward the celestial heavens. Priests who climbed them enacted cosmic ascension. Inside the pyramids were narrow tunnels, chambers where kings were buried with masks of jade and bones painted red with cinnabar. These were tombs, yes, but also gateways. The kings were not dead. They had become gods. They had passed the test. And even in death, the Maya believed the trials did not end. Funeral rites included reenactments of the hero twins' story, sometimes with masked dancers playing the roles, sometimes carved into the walls of tombs and temples as if to say, "Even now you are walking the path." The sacred books, like the Dresden Codex or the Madrid Codex, contain astrological cycles and ritual instructions that align with the mythic structure of the twins' journey. The passage through the houses of Xibalba became a metaphor for the calendar itself, with the movement of Venus, the eclipses, the solstices, all echoing the eternal rhythm of trial, sacrifice, rebirth. In a deeper sense, time itself was a ritual. To live meant to move through cycles, not in a straight line but in a spiral. Like the twins, every generation was expected to face its own darkness. To lose something, to be tested, to descend, and worthier to rise again. Even the crops told this story. Maize, the sacred plant of the Maya, was seen as a living god. It is no coincidence that the hero twins, after defeating the lords of death, descend once again into the earth, and then rise one final time as maize itself. They do not just become stars. They become food. They become sustenance. The Maya planted maize with reverence. They whispered to it. They buried offerings beneath the soil, small figures, jade beads, obsidian blades. They asked it to grow not just in body, but in spirit. Every harvest was a resurrection, and every meal was a sacred act. It was said that humans were made from maize, but more than that, they were made to repeat the journey of the maize god, to grow, to be cut down, to rise again. Even in art, the trials were never forgotten. On pottery, murals, stelae, the faces of the hero twins appear, wide-eyed, poised, divine. They are shown in mid-leap, in dance, in battle, in sacrifice. They are never static, always moving, always becoming. Because to the Maya, divinity was not fixed. It was something one earned. The gods tested not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. And only those who embraced the trial, with courage, with cleverness, with humility, could pass. The myths were alive. They were in the games played in sunlit courts, in the whispered prayers before the fire, in the blood dropped on bark paper and burned as smoke, in the bones of kings sealed inside sacred tombs. And today, even now, in the echoes of jungle temples, the story is still being told. The hero twins were not simply figures of myth. They were the blueprint for existence, woven into the very fabric of Maya life. Their journey was not a tale locked in the past. It was a cycle lived and relived through ritual, sacrifice, and ceremony. Across the ancient cities of the Maya world, Tikal, Copan, Palenque, Chichén Itzá, rituals unfolded with one goal: to echo the path through Xibalba, the underworld of the gods. Among the most sacred of these reenactments was the Maya ball game, known as Pok Tapak or pits. Played on massive stone courts with vertical walls and high stone hoops, this was far more than a sport. It was a symbolic struggle between light and darkness, life and death, the very forces the hero twins battled in myth. The ball, made of solid rubber, was struck with hips, elbows, and knees, never hands. Each play mimicked celestial movement, echoing the stars, the planets, the eternal balance of the universe. And sometimes those who played were not merely athletes. They were vessels, embodying gods in human form. To score was not just to win, it was to fulfill prophecy, to realign the cosmos. And in some cases, the conclusion of a match meant sacrifice. Contrary to modern belief, not all victims were punished captives. Some were honored warriors or even willing participants. For the Maya, sacrifice was transformation. It was the crossing of a threshold, the spilling of royal blood through piercing tongues, ears, or genitals with obsidian blades was not horror, but holiness. Blood was the bridge between worlds, the sacred offering to feed the gods. In the flickering torchlight of midnight ceremonies, nobles entered trance states, guided by drums and incense, until they saw visions of ancestors, gods, serpents of smoke and fire. These rituals weren't isolated events. They were seasonal, cosmic, timed with celestial alignments. Venus's rise, eclipses, solstices, these weren't random occurrences. They were calls to ritual, moments when the veil between worlds was thinnest. Even the pyramids themselves told this story, with each tier symbolizing layers of the universe, from the underworld below to the earthly plane to the heavens above. The climb of a priest was a journey through existence itself. Burials beneath these sacred temples were no mere internments. They were spiritual send-offs. Kings adorned with jade masks and cinnabar-covered bones weren't just entombed. They were deified. In death, they became part of the divine cycle, like the hero twins who fell only to rise again as celestial bodies, as maize, as symbols of endless rebirth. Every harvest of maize was a reenactment of the twins' resurrection. Maize wasn't just food, it was a god, a sacred origin, the flesh of humanity itself. Planting became a prayer. Growing it was part of the cycle. Eating it was communion. Even art and architecture echoed the myth. Pottery, murals, and carvings showed the twins battling death, tricking the gods, rising as stars. The stories were encoded everywhere, not as entertainment, but as instruction. To live was to face trials, to descend into your own darkness, to emerge, changed. That was the test of the gods, and the Maya did not fear it. They embraced it. Their world was not one of idol worship, but of cosmic participation. Through ritual, sacrifice, architecture, art, and celestial observance, they did not just tell the story of the hero twins, they lived it. And even today, in the ruins swallowed by jungle, in the calendars that still count time, in the echoes of ball courts and the glyphs yet to be fully read, the trials continue. The gods still whisper, and the chosen still walk the path. Modern science has peeled back layers of mystery surrounding the Maya, revealing astonishing insights while leaving some questions tantalizingly unanswered. Archaeologists have uncovered sprawling cities deep in the jungle, revealing the extent of Maya civilization. Monumental temples, intricate ball courts, and sophisticated water management systems. Decoding the Maya script, one of the few fully developed writing systems of the ancient Americas, has allowed scholars to read the stories, histories, and even the voices of the Maya themselves. Through carbon dating and stratigraphy, timelines of construction, ritual, and collapse have been mapped with increasing accuracy. Yet, despite these advances, the very heart of the Maya experience breathes. The fantastical and mythic world remains elusive. Modern science excels at measuring, categorizing, and reconstructing physical evidence, but it struggles to grasp the intangible, the essence of the gods, the meaning behind the trials, and the lived experience of cosmic connection. The hero twins, for instance, are not just characters in ancient texts. They embody concepts of duality, transformation, and rebirth that transcend linear explanation. Their story is encoded in the motions of planets, the cycles of the sun and moon, and the very flow of time itself, which for the Maya was cyclical, layered, and infinite. Neuroscientific research into trance states and ritual-induced altered consciousness reveals that what the Maya described as vision quests or divine communication aligns with human neurological responses to rhythmic stimuli and sensory deprivation. This suggests their spiritual experiences had biological foundations, but the cultural framing, the interpretation as messages from gods or ancestors, is a human creation steeped in meaning. In parallel, studies of the sacred ball game reveal it was far more than a game. It was a ritual embodiment of cosmic struggle, as confirmed by ethno-historical records and surviving traditions among indigenous descendants. The painful and sacred nature of blood sacrifice also aligns with anthropological theories on ritual as a means of social cohesion, power negotiation, and cosmic order. However, the precision with which the Maya tracked eclipses and planetary cycles, and their deep astronomical knowledge, still amazes scientists today. Instruments or tools that might explain such accuracy have not been found, leading some to wonder if this knowledge was passed down through generations in ways modern science has yet to fully understand. Moreover, the Maya calendar, with its intricate cycles like the Tzolk'in and the long count, encodes a worldview where time is not simply linear, but a spiral of endless renewal, an idea that challenges Western conceptions of history and science. The mythology, astronomy, architecture, and rituals together form a holistic system that modern science can analyze in parts, but cannot fully encapsulate in totality. This leaves us at a profound intersection. The Maya left behind tangible legacies that science can uncover, but they also left an invisible inheritance, a worldview, a spiritual journey, a challenge to perceive reality beyond the measurable. The enduring mystery is why their trials, sacrifices, and cosmic dances still resonate across millennia, inviting us to look not just at ruins or artifacts, but into the very nature of existence. The Maya teach us that some truths are lived, not just studied. They call us to embrace cycles of death and rebirth, to seek transformation, and to acknowledge the sacred in the everyday. In this way, science and myth coexist, each illuminating the other, yet neither alone able to tell the whole story of what it truly meant to face the tests of the Mayan gods. The story of the Maya and their divine trials is more than an ancient legend frozen in time. It is a living legacy that challenges our understanding of history, spirituality, and human potential. These tests of the gods were not mere punishments or spectacles, but profound rites of passage that shaped a civilization's identity, philosophy, and cosmic connection. They remind us that survival was not about physical strength alone, but about courage, wisdom, and the willingness to confront the unknown. Today, as we stand amidst the towering ruins swallowed by jungle and listen to the whispers carried by the wind, we are invited to reflect on our own trials, both personal and collective. The Maya endured cycles of creation and destruction, of light and shadow, teaching us that resilience and transformation are eternal. Their legacy beckons us to honor the sacred rhythms of life, to respect the mysteries beyond what we can see or measure, and to embrace the journey of becoming, of facing our own tests with heart and spirit. In remembering the hero twins, the ball game, the rituals of sacrifice, and the intricate dance of the stars, we connect to something timeless, the human quest to transcend, to understand, and to belong. So, as you watch, think about what it means to be chosen in your own life. Is it strength, wisdom, compassion, or perhaps the courage to walk through your own underworld and emerge anew. The Maya trials continue, not just in history books or dusty ruins, but within each of us. And that is the true legacy of a civilization that mastered the sky, time, and the soul. Thank you for joining this journey into the heart of the Mayan world. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries of ancient civilizations. What part of the Maya trials intrigued you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your reflections. Until next time, may your path be guided by the stars and your spirit remain unyielding. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to check out another interesting video.